say
What?
at this point.
Boom, bang, bada bing. I thought it was going to be bada bing, bada boom. Don't do that.
Bang, bing, bada, boom.
Bada boom.
All right. With that being said, hello to all the 2,500,000. I can't remember the number. And at some point in there, it's very close to 2.6. But here are your redeem codes. Take it while you still can. And if you are a fan of MLBB, well, you gotta tell your friends about it, especially if they're fans of esports, and especially if they're playing Mobile Legends. Help us hit those records. 3 million by the end of today seems very doable, and that means you could potentially get more than these codes. There's 3 here. You could get another 3, and maybe even another one. That's 9 codes in total by the end of the series.
I'm not happy with just 2.5, you know? We broke the MSC 2021 record, but let's break the M3 record, right? Let's set a new standard for supremacy.
What's that record? So for those that don't know out there.
3 million viewers.
That's
on
doable,
the dot.
man.
On the dot. 3.1.
3.1.
Okay, we're generous here. We'll round it down a little bit so it's a little bit more achievable, but I definitely think that if we can hit anywhere higher than 3.2, that'd be crazy, especially for a game. And it's only game 2, by the way. Game 2.
It should, like, multiply by 2 then, no?
Okay,
Is that how it works?
We're obviously not the math guys here, you know, and
I have to tell you, that's not how it works at all.
well, why don't you give us the math here, get it on this previous game breakdown.
All right, now, when we were talking over the analyst behind you. You guys didn't hear us, but Aqua, as a low-key player, seems to be very efficient and just, taking his time with a lot of these situations. But you do feel his urgency, you do feel his presence when needed the most, and especially with Xavier, I think this is the perfect hero for him. He can be felt all across the map.
The fact is that he didn't die while doing that, right? While dishing out 160,000 damage, going up against so much kill pressure here and so much big potential. How? What?
Okay, I want to ask you guys, for all, and maybe all the Xavier players out there, is that impressive kind of damage? Because we saw that, right? This is the dawning light on, what, maybe 12, 13 second cooldown. You can literally sit in your base and pop off a ton of damage. I mean, is that an impressive number for a Xavier?
Okay.
How are we feeling?
I don't want to ruin it for all the Xavier players to make this the standard, because if nobody hits like 160, it's just like, oh man, you're not a good Xavier player, right? Yeah, man, that'd be terrible. This is an outstanding stat coming here from Aqua, and especially in a professional game that has gone that long. I mean, let's take another comparison, right? Look at him on and how much damage he was able to pump out, and he really wants to dish it out during those team fights, and he's only able to manage 114 damage despite the game length.
It's insane, right? The fact that Aqua was able to dish out that damage so well, as well, positioned so well. He was actually in the base for the most part, right? Remember this. He was actually clearing it out, micromanaging the waves while his team was looking for these Lord fights, looking to flip these fights, and he was just there supporting the team with a dawning light. Sure, we did see a lot of damage come through from that Mystic Field as well, just locking people down, but again, this is definitely not average. This is above average. This is the standard for the best Xavier player in the world right now, and it's looking to be Aqua so far, right? But look at the other side, RRQ Hoshi. Now, I feel like this is just a very uncharacteristic performance from Albert, I believe, right? Because let's take a look at the statistics that are not presented here in the previous game recap. Let's talk about retributions, because that's what he's known for here, especially in MSC. He has such a big percentage when it comes to that success rate of winning the 50-50s, but here in the grand finals up against Demon Kai, whenever there was a 50-50, I feel like he won once in the entirety of game number 1.
Yes, and that's the thing, right? We saw that last game too. It was really, he tried to get that off, and we saw that fail for him. So Demon Kai can also be said, in the Philippines, to be one of those junglers that's on point most of the time with the retributions. But if you think about it, right, at that point, if you go look at the play making that was coming from Albert, it looked like he was a little bit frustrated, a little bit tilted. He was trying, this time around, he was doing what Light was doing before, where he's trying to force situations, trying to salvage anything that he could, and this is kind of what resulted in that game 1 going in favor of RSG Philippines.
Well, I think we need to talk about 2 things here. Number 1, what was doing this entire time? Because you would imagine that, and especially from a regular player's perspective, as a support, and especially when you're playing Kufra, you're trying to cancel out as many abilities as possible. Don't allow the space to be taken by R7, make sure you zone out Vin, make sure you can maybe stop the jump coming in from Albert, but most importantly, stopping the real world manipulation from Clay. Did we see that happen? Half of the time, no. So what exactly was Light doing? He was getting in front of Albert's face, making sure that he didn't feel very comfortable. So therefore, Albert has to deal with Light in his face to close that distance. But let's take it a step further. What are the micro mechanics when you're coming down to that retribution fight? And I know, Miracle, when you play the jungle, you feel this too. When an opponent is in your head, how do they play the retributions? Do they retribute early? Do they retribute late? And the first time, it's always late. The second time, maybe just slightly earlier. And I think that's what got into Albert's head. He's not sure when exactly he is going to have to deal with a dawning light on top of the retribution.
This just shows, right, that the players here on stage, they're humans too, and they can make mistakes, especially when RSG were just so good at playing to stall the game. That's what this composition was made for. We mentioned it during the draft. We said that this is the threat that just keeps on rising as the game progresses, and that's exactly what happened. Albert, he gained so much confidence in the first few minutes, the first 15 minutes, I believe, by getting most of the turtles. I mean, all of the turtles, most of the lords, up until that 150-50 battle that Demon Kai won. And that's the thing, the frustration that builds on that, the fact that they cannot end the game with so many lord pushes, with all the base turrets taken down, it just keeps on building. And now in game number 1, it was Albert that we saw that hit this tilt. Who's going to suffer it in game number 2? Because after a loss in that fashion, comeback, it's huge. It's really huge on that mentality game.
Yeah, and this is again going back on the fact that RSG Philippines, from yesterday's performances, they have the momentum. We talked about it in the first game draft, right? Pre-draft. And at this point, right, they're feeling a lot confident going into game number 2. RRQ Hoshi, though, you got to give it up to them. They set the pace really early on, which came from Vin, right? Because they want to put pressure on the jungle of RSG Philippines. They really want to just play around every part of the map. And I mean, we saw that, right, with Vin. So I'm wondering if they continue to do that for the next game ahead of them.
Well, I personally think that when you're in Albert's position, you're looking to Vin for some help. But then you realize very quickly that Vin needs to actually go in front and actually look for those big engage. So he is by himself in this endeavor, and Clay is way behind him with real world manipulation, right? You don't have that similar burst that RSGPH has with this composition. So personally, I think one of the few changes that we are expected to see in this matchup is specifically coming in from R7, right? He tried to dominate his lane. He followed up very quickly to get that armor shred for the rest of his team, and especially Skylar. But now I think they're going to prioritize him either maybe getting an Esmeralda, possibly even getting a Babak.
And at this stage of the tournament, I believe that this Beatrix cannot be, you really just don't want to see the Beatrix and the Xavier together, especially when it gets to that late game stage. Now, I feel like this was the biggest problem for RRQ Hoshi. Once it hit that 18-minute timer, it's the poke coming in from the Renner, from the Dawning Line. It kept on coming through, and it chunks them for so much HP. Take a look at the items. Well, we can't take a look at the items here, but you guys probably did during the analyst segment. Divine Glaive, the burst from Xavier, and the penetration. Same goes for the Beatrix here. In that later stage of the game, he was able to chunk everyone low, even Vin. We mentioned this a little bit in the game. Vin, and all the members here, they're capped when it comes to that range. Meanwhile, on the enemy team, when you have that much range, you're not even safe in your base.
Frustration as it's... Wait, is that you? Is that you coming in from Tony? I'm pretty sure it is, and he's just looking away, making sure he's shining the camera. Come on, man, we know it's you. We love you. And anyways, coming back into this game, the crowd's even responding to it. They know it too. They know it. All right, but with the score being 1-0 so far for RSGPH, this is the problem, the momentum, right? That momentum mentality-wise, the players, the juices are flowing. They want to continue this momentum up. So I do think that maybe with this win, they're going to take a more aggressive composition, maybe early to mid, possibly. Death ball, snowball, those are the keywords that come to mind.
I mean, this is the distinctive difference in the regions, right? If you want to talk about the regions here, like I said, RSG Philippines plays very good on that defensive strategy if they need to, but they can also match aggression. So going into game 2, does RSG Philippines want to match it this time? Because RRQ is obviously going to come out swinging, I feel like, but there is still potential because of the fact that this is a best of 7. They're like, let's hey, let's just slow it down a little bit, just a little notch, where we can take a much more calculated approach, secure those early objectives a little bit better, or those later lords, because they did grab the turtles early on, right? So those are the things they probably want to think out mentally going into the next draft.
I agree, and we've seen the glimpses of brilliance here from RRQ. Game number 1 wasn't a dominant victory from RSG. Sure it was, but after the 18th minute of the game, right? So we can see distinct weaknesses as well coming from the side of RSGPH. I think RRQ Hoshi in game number 2, they just want to re-emphasize on that early game pressure. Maybe just keep on pushing it through, find those picks, maybe more often this time, and pull the trigger. I feel like they were really hesitant on doing that in the base of the enemy team. A lot of the times we saw that, yes, Iman and Aqua were on point to the poking game, but it was because RRQ, they opened space for them. They didn't really pull the trigger. Vin didn't want to engage inside of the enemy base, and because of that, they were a little bit too patient, a little bit too disciplined. Now that's weird to say, but MSC 2022, we've seen it. Teams who fall behind has a lot of success when they're behind.
I mean, I don't know. This is kind of sounding like Donut, who we got in the crowd. Shout outs to them coming in from home soil, but yeah, I do think if that does happen, if RSG tries to match them in terms of that aggression, that's probably going to break a lot of mentalities here, which is going to be frustrating for RRQ because, I don't want to say historically, but very recently in the previous matchup, RSG did try to actually go toe-to-toe for early to mid, and that didn't bode well for them as RRQ are very comfortable when it comes down to early to mid game control.
Yeah, control early on is going to be important for both teams, but I just think going back on RSG Philippines through their season from 8 to season 9, that refinement that they went through, even with the coaches, right? It allowed them to just have so many aces up their sleeve that you're usually not expecting, right? This is what we've seen from their aggressive play styles, like the death ball strategies, like you guys mentioned. We've seen it from how they figure out how to deal with more defensive type style teams. And this could also, again, come into the draft. We see a lot of these comfort heroes come out, but at the same time, they have surprised us as well. And I feel like, if anything, it would be RRQ Hoshi that surprises us more. There could be something that they're holding on to. In game 2, as we are waiting to go into that game, this could be the time for them to pull it out.
Possibly. I don't know. I'm a little nervous because when I think of RRQ, there is that possibility. Like, it's a 0.1%. I don't know how the players are feeling personally, but this could be like potential Malaysian PTSD, you know, M1 situation, the history repeating itself all over again. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sweating. I'm sweating here. I'm sweating.
Again, I didn't want to be the one to say it, right?
Don't worry, that's why I'm here.
Yeah. You're covering up for me, but that's what I'm getting at right now, right? Especially considering that RSG Philippines right now, I feel like they have a good read onto the game and a good read on RRQ's strategy. I don't know who uploaded something talking about decoding RRQ. Some no-namer coach probably, right? I don't know who he is currently. I don't know. Probably world champion, is he? I don't know. Nice-u. You know who he is?
I'm not gonna say it.
Look,
I'll just leave it out there.
Look, Avian Birds may not necessarily be my favorite, but if they're world champions, it's a different story. Anyways, when we're talking about a particular game, hopefully we do see that change, and maybe even the draft sometime soon. Oh my goodness! I'm itching. I've got so much pre-workout in me. I am tingling.
Well, speaking of the draft now, let's try to dissect it here for RRQ and for RSG. But
wait,
we hit the new viewer record.
Serious.
Okay, 2.613. I like that.
They love our discussions here about the
Welcome
drafts and
to the
everything else.
MSC podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome. The MSC 2022 podcast, but welcome everybody who's watching. And you know what that means. The new PCU record completely shattered, and we haven't even gone into the draft of game number 2. So respect where respect is, dude. Thank you to everybody watching. Let's keep on pushing forward, because if you aren't watching this game, and if you're still at work, get a phone, open it up, pull it up on stream, maybe get an iPad on top of it, maybe get like, I don't know how many other tablets you can get. Maybe get your animals and pets to watch it with you. Maybe your hamster.
One person, 10 screens.
One person, 10 screens. There we go. That's the plan.
Does that actually count though?
I don't think so.
10 accounts as well. 10 accounts.
Okay. How many
You need 10
emails do you have to have?
I was gonna say, those people that they want to get those views on those videos. I was gonna say, dude, when they open up new tabs, does it actually count? Right?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know if that applies here either.
Personally, I don't think it applies. I think, algorithms a lot smarter than that. We got to believe in our system somehow, some way, to make sure it works correctly. But I trust that Winter's all on top of this. going to make sure that they're giving us accurate numbers throughout the day.
Absolutely, you know, and back again to the point, the drafts here. Let's talk about it real quick here, all right? Skylar, I feel like, again, yes, the Clint was a good pick, especially for that early to mid stage in the game where he was able to get that snowball going, but Iman on the Beatrix is just such hassle to deal with when you don't have the Claude, right? The reason that Skylar was able to win all these matchups in the upper bracket finals was because of the Claude. It was because of the pick. This pick is just so huge currently, right? I'm getting some flashbacks of the Blazing Duet by Carl Teasy back in M2, and that's exactly what we're seeing, right? Claude is a prio pick. It's being banned down in the first phase, and that's just so interesting to me. The fact that we are developing the meta as MSC progresses.
This is why it's called a tournament meta, right? People feel like they come up with solutions, and there's not a lot of time in tournaments, right? So you have to go and double down on easy to execute, highly effective heroes, and especially when it comes down to draft compositions, right? So that's why Claude is in a good position. That means Valentina isn't. And that's the weird thing. All across every single local MPL, Valentina has had the highest win rate since, I don't know, Harith since like season 4, and that's a long time ago. That was like MSC 2019, and I was there for that.
That's one of the biggest question marks of this whole tournament, right? Valentina, high win rate, but at the same time, what we've seen so far in this tournament, whenever she's picked, it's a blunder, right? It hasn't really worked out that well for any of the teams that have taken it, and that's why we see that being open. So I would be surprised if it was any time for Valentina kind of to find that redemption arc for herself, right, as a hero. It would be possibly this grand final match.
At this point, we're not just developing the teams, the meta. Let's develop the characters, the heroes, arcs here in the tournament, right? Redemption arc for Valentina, not for the team. I'd like to see that, honestly, right? Because I feel like it's still underutilized. That's the word for it that I'm finding.
Okay, maybe not underutilized. I'm of the opinion people are going for very, well, not exactly the most optimal builds, especially when we're starting to think about compositional strategies, right? Because if we're talking about Valentina, how many people decide to opt, hey, I'm going to build the Clock of Destiny's first item? Not many people. Most would be like, okay, let's take it a step back. I'm going to get, magic penetration boots, and immediately after go for the talisman, and then see how aggressive that I can get. Now we're talking about Valentina and scaling, right? That Clock of Destinies, even though you won't feel as good, it's going to get better later. Hey, everybody, quick shout outs to the players coming back onto the stage. Let's make some noise for RRQ coming back on, and hopefully we can get the draft started and rolling. Please, dear God.
Well, we can only talk so much about all these ideas that we have about the drafts, the heroes throughout the tournament, the meta that has been pretty much established here up to this point. Because back in the group stages, man, I know Gideon, you and I even talked about how we were excited to see what develops over the course of the tournament. And I would say we're pretty much there, right? So now we have RSG. We will be starting short. One slip through the cracks because, like you said, Claude pretty much wins games just like Franco does, right? So big 2 priority heroes that probably won't get a chance to be picked here. So what does that leave open? Because also, I still want to say, I think Demon struggled quite a bit on that Lancelot.
Absolutely, and when we're talking about these priority picks being left open, it comes down to confidence. It comes down to the coaches here. If they are getting overconfident, if they want to take it a step further, sure, let's open up some heroes. Franco, you want to try the Franco? Sure, we are 1 game ahead. It's very risky, but if it works, right, if they win against RRQ Hoshi, who has the Franco at hand, it's such a massive blow.
I don't know here. If I was in Iman or Skylar's position, I'd be like, no.
Please no, yeah.
Please no.
Dear
Please
God,
no.
don't give them Franco. I don't want to get hooked out of nowhere. I don't want to look at him for half a second, scratch my nose real quick, and just die.
You don't even need to scratch your nose. You'd be your screen is like an inch away from you, and boom, out of nowhere. You have the flicker ready. You are prepared for it.
All I'm imagining, every time you say boom, it's just Vin or Light hitting that hook, and as he's using the Bloody Hunt to lock you down and kill you, he's just going bada bing, bada bing, bada bing, bada bing. Time after time. Yeah, when does it end? When does it end, Gotti? Calling him out right now, right here on live cast.
He's way too cute, my guy.
He's way too cute. God, why is he so cute? Anyways, nice.
We're talking about Franco, we're talking about Kami.
Look, a lot of personal issues going on. But when we talk about Franco specifically, I don't think that he is. I think he's a little too risky, personally, for my taste, to let through it. And I think there's too much writing on these gold banners to make it happen. So I think maybe just maybe picking up a Selena. I'm just saying, personal opinion. But let's jump into the draft of game number 2. Thank God.
Oh, honestly, now back at it again. We are going to see the Respect and RRQ Hoshi actually opting to go for the same route here. They go for the first pick. They don't opt to go for that second pick. RSG Philippines and RRQ so far, it is literally the same bands coming through. RSG Philippines with the Franco band now. Do they decide to change it a little bit here for game number 2, or do they want to just go for it? If they broke, don't fix it. Well, Link.
Yeah, and I would say we're probably going to expect Claude being banned out too. It will still leave some things open. But also just a little fact here. Before the previous game, right, RRQ Hoshi, they were still 100% undefeated first pick, right? So at this point, they still, like you said, they take the first pick here. So that will allow them to take that priority. What I'm wondering is, do they still want to go with the Akai? Because we've seen teams kind of decide, do we take the Akai if it's going to be open, or do we focus on something else?
I think this is one of the situations where they... Okay, so RQ can decide not to take a Kai first pick, which I do think is a bit of a mistake, but they are going to flex it. I'm guessing, early prediction that R7 might be the one who picks it up here instead. Because they're banning out the Esmeralda, right? We're getting some hints that maybe they're going to prioritize R7.
But there is a hero that was actually left open completely there. It was the Julian, right? So where is the Julian?
That's a good point.
Where is the Julian? Where does he come into this game?
I mean, Julian's been a little weird.
He is.
In your words, he's been a little weird because, it works better for me personally in the jungle. And there has been teams that have been able to play it well in the mid lane, but still, it struggles a little, especially when we're talking about those mages that continuously get picked. And, the Eve last game wasn't even built damage. It was utility, like you guys mentioned, and you saw the damage charts. They were still pumping out quite a bit of damage on that Eve. We see the last man here, of course, going to be that Claude, not going to go in the hands here of Skylar. Like you said, they literally won games, right? So there you go. They go with the pick that we've been talking about. They lock in the Akai.
All right, I first, RSG, I'm guessing they're going to do the same thing. They're going to pick up the Xavier here potentially, as well as the big seems, because the Esmeralda's already banned, right? So I feel like it's awkward to pick your EXP later now because there's nothing that's really safe other than maybe Uranus. Evil, big marks.
Well, we're talking about Nabs here, right? Again, another signature
Thanos.
hero. There it is.
Yeah.
The Thanos.
That's what I was thinking of, right? Right now, I feel like it is, yes, you don't want to see the Xavier and the Matrix in the enemy team, but I feel like it's still too expensive to pick off right as you start, right? It's a good pick, but you need to space it out. The timing between these two picks is because they have these aggressive people who are playing offense more than defense. That creates the opening for Xavier and RSGPH. I really like this. Yes, we said the timeless, but the Masha does backline of now. The tricks can be picked up. Do you good read by RSG, right? If you come with a time because you still don't know where exactly they're going to
I
go.
was going to put on the table. I was going to say the E because, again, a similar matchup, right? Pretty much the same matchup from game number 1. But what I am wondering, do they still go with that utility build? Because it did work out for a certain amount of time, but eventually it would have been beneficial if you had a little more punch right on that Eve. We saw that last pickup where it was that damage item, the glowing one, right? It worked out pretty well, but if you have a little more damage, that could be beneficial. Now, RSG Philippines, they take the Beatrix here out of the hands of RRQ.
At hindsight, I want to talk about this right now. Emphasize RRQ's draft. They pick up the Kai for the first pick. They go for the Eve and the Karina. By picking up the Karina, you kind of reduce that flex potential of the Kai, but they still can go as a roamer. It can still be affected by the XE and the roamer. We're just gonna have to see how that plays in because I feel like Karina is a completely different story. It's so easy to chain the damage with that retribution to win and maybe build more confidence. He's making sure that the Masha is going to be A-OK, he's going to be all good, all healthy. Max HP can't do none of that shit. Needs no more. Even for RRQ, they're making sure that the support is limited. Well, get rid of the Angela, make sure they don't have a dedicated wave. I do think it's a little strange considering that RSGPH right now, in terms of initiation, when we look at
It's sprint or run it, right? And that's what we see here. But RSG Philippines going to take out big gold laners here again. All 3 bans, right?
Very
3
smart.
bans to the gold lane here. They're really limiting the choices here for RRQ as they take out that Airfield too, which is fun because we saw Airfield pop up do pretty well so far through the tournament, but still, teams aren't prioritizing her as much. And RRQ takes out the Cho pick here, so they're focusing still on the choices here of Light. And at the same time, RSG Philippines, what do they want to take to complement that jungle? Like you said, they have the Masha. They could possibly, I'm thinking for Demon Kai, right, in the jungle. If he wants to go maybe the Baksha, we've seen Baksha, right, being able to just roll around the map himself, initiate very well, and can still clear relatively well too. Plus, you know, you have that built-in passive that is beneficial for those big team fights.
I feel like if now they are up against the Korean, would just try to go for the same thing here. Lancelot fits perfectly in, right? If you want to test these 50-50 battles, Lancelot does a really good job at securing these objectives, and Demon Kai, we know he can play it really well, but no, there you go. Up for the Baksha, up for the Lancelot, but the Barats here.
It's been so long, so very long. We've been talking about how Babak is a very clear way of dealing with the Akai. The heavy spam have no initiation tools. It's a very simple way. No one really has been utilizing it other than Malaysian representatives. By the way, got knocked out, so therefore you can definitely see that there is a big stain on Babak, but it's good to see him back right now.
Yeah.
There's a big question though here, and who is going to be the gold leader? Brody and the Ruby pick. I really like the Ruby pick, considering that they are up against Iman, who is on the Beatrix here. Sure, you would usually see Masha for Rux, but I'm actually looking at Iman here because he's been so impactful, mostly when he gets the Wesker as well, right? Sure, Renner for sure, but now it kind of forces him to maybe play the Renner a little bit more, be a little bit safer on that Wesker, and that's the opening for the Brody to come into play. That burst damage that gets everyone out. The thing is though, that late game, he falls off in terms of damage. We've seen this time and time again.
Yeah, the performance of the hero alone isn't very spectacular on that Brody pick, and our Philippines is going to lock in the Lolita here. So these guys are quite tanky, and this is going to be hard to get through that defense of RSG Philippines because it's going to work so well. Even you're talking about the Xavier plus the Lolita, and just to negate a lot of that incoming damage from RRQ.
Negate is one way of putting it. I feel like it's more for the disengage more than anything else. It is not exactly too easy here, especially for RR, and especially RSG, my bad. It's that when they are looking for these bigger engages, there's just a lot of options and tools that RRQ have to just say no. Ruby, for example, simple way, a lot of taunts, a lot of ways to make sure that Masha isn't going to be as effective, or even Lolita.
I'm looking at the composition so far, and I just really like RSG right now. Because, okay, yes, RRQ, Man of Dawn for game number 2. Let's see if RRQ can equalize, or RSG can follow up with the momentum.
Here we go. Number 2 on its way. This early game is going to be a make it or break it for both sides. Demon Kai cannot lose his momentum here against Albert, who is going to be on his Karina. You know what he's like on these assassins.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, having early skirmishing already here. This is the power of a Ruby, right? And you can not able to force any spells out here yet, but going back to Vin, right? Vin, especially the performance that he has on a Franco, I feel like he does a great job on a Ruby too. You can already see the early aggression coming out.
Whoa, Demon Cut, yeah, take it very low here. He's forced to back up. That's gonna be the Mystic Field often used to just immobilize Vin, stop this tempo from getting any further. But you can see, right now, Light and Aqua, they are very pressured in lane.
Yeah, and that's what you want to see, especially when Vin is playing that Ruby, right? Aqua, especially when he's on that Xavier, is not going to be very effective in the early stages of the game. And the same goes for Lolita, who just has a pointing blank stun. Okay, they didn't steal away the orange buff. Thank goodness Demon Kai can continue farming.
What I'm wondering though too is in these early objectives, if they have enough here at RC, they initiate.
Oh, first blood there for RSG. Again, Vin a little bit too aggressive there. RSG instantly punished.
Okay, going back to my point, right? Do they have enough to win these kind of early aggressive trades that are happening from RQ? And, you know, I guess they do because they grab that first blood. And with the turtle coming up shortly, they might be able to set themselves up here. Emon gonna flicker out, but has to reset too. And they want to prepare for that next turtle.
And I think this is smart. RRQ are making sure that the mid lane priority is forcing Lolita to kind of match because they're threatening somebody. They threaten the jungle. They can't afford the jungle to fall off that early. So Light has to match them everywhere they go, allowing for the lane dominant heroes like Skylar playing this Brody to try and win this early game against Iman.
Let's see the first turtle fight here. It is going to be RRQ looking for more. Nats going to the back line. That's going to be Albert winning on the Retribution battle. R7 pinning Demon Kite down as the real world manipulation comes in. Demon Kite taken low, going to be taken down there by R7 as Albert will look to kite away. The Dawning Light is not enough, even with Nats damage to top it off. It is RRQ with a favorable 2-for-1 trade and the turtle.
See, that's the thing, right? They don't have the damage yet quite enough. And you could see, right, this is the jungle variance does work pretty well, but even early on, especially when you're forced to fight in that real world manipulation, and with Vin being there, it's pretty tough to win those early trades.
I think more so, they just need the items. They need their first items here. They did play a little bit of a risk trying to get a pick back, but I think RSG at this point, they don't mind. First turtle, a little bit of EXP. They're not completely out of it just yet. The only consequence that they take is the fact that Demon Kite has to restack himself all over again. He wants to be a big boy, but right now he's just going to be walking on some toddler legs for a while.
Yeah, but back at it again to the point that we made a little bit, right, in the drafts. RRQ, this composition was made to dominate this early game, securing a lot of the neutral objectives, especially with a Brody in lane. You're looking for a lot of catches, but when it comes to that late game, I feel like this is, again, a very Omega-ish draft from RSGPH. It feels like they're stalling it out for Aqua and for Iman on the speed tricks to scale up. RRQ, they need to pull the trigger. They need to look for fights early on, maybe more picks than team number 1, but so far, I feel like RSG have been able to nullify all of that.
Yeah, like you said, you know, they're going with that same kind of game plan. They've made a couple changes in their draft here, but Aqua also picking up the Clock of Destiny already at this point. So this is what we saw, right? That early fight where he didn't really have that damage yet. At this point, it's already going to be scaling. So the next big objectives that do come up, now RRQ Hoshi has to be pretty much careful in how they decide to go about those fights.
And I think a lot of it has to come down to whether or not RRQ Hoshi members have battle spells, right? And I think, oh, here we go, a fight.
Oh, R7 still able to find that heavy spin onto Aqua, even with the flicker pop, and that's going to be light falling as well. Albert with the double kill. 0. This is what you want to see from RRQ. Using that early aggressiveness to just look for fights, and R7 roaming so early on is just such a curveball to RSG.
You have to admit, the RQ members are a little too good at Kai. Somehow they always get more than, like, they get 2 members at a minimum, and this is starting to become a bit of a weird trend. Like, how are they learning? What is the boot camp for a Kai here?
I mean, no matter what role they play it in, it works so well for them. And that's a thing too, right? You can continue to just let NAF stay in that lane. R7 is going to be way more valuable if he wins those team fights anyway. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. So they have that early lead already, 2.4k gold lead, five minutes in. And like we said, RSG Philippines wants to just take the time, slow down a little bit here, and just get into this game, because obviously the tempo is being set by RRQ Hoshi.
You can see that there are a lot of little victories that RRQ Hoshi are taking on the map, not just from these team fights alone, but notice how they play the waves, especially in that mid lane. They don't usually just shove it off. Like, even here, right? They're waiting for the enemy to spawn out themselves, and that's going to be actually Finn, who gets caught in the render and the stun from Light. Tyler's here looking for the play onto Light, but Light, just perfect flicker timing there to get out of that situation as R7 tries to make his way into that mid lane through the top side river. He will be forced to back up by Demon Kite and Nas, showing dominance here in the river. He's just taking control.
Yep, Nats always has to match R7 no matter what, or control the lane. They need to take something away because Skylar eventually will be able to keep on pushing Iman back. Iman does get Blade of Despair here, and Skylar relentless. Every single time he makes even this little bit of contact against Iman, instantly he pops the ult.
Yeah, I mean, Skylar also just picked it up too, right? So at that point, both gold laners, it's going to be scary, and also depending on their positioning for each team to deal with that damage now. But as this look at both experts just cutting the lanes, they definitely want to set up for this next turtle in just a couple of seconds, and still in every single kill participation at this point, right? He also has that 3-shot emblem, so he's going to be able to buy, I believe he's going utility once again onto E, and that's why they're so confident in these fights around these objectives.
Well, let's see. Nats is going to be first here on to the river, joining up with his team, but he might be all alone. Vin going to be able to chain CC him with R7. Nats popping in that sprint, trying to look that back line, and Skylar will be able to kite back. RRQ doing really well here at the front to back composition. They look for the turtle once again. Nats down to 2 HP, but look at Light. This is a very good position for him to look for that Numenor blast. And Frank Albert gets the blast on pop. It will find no one as Skylar jumps in. That's going to be the kill streak picked up. RRQ looking to collapse further as Light will be caught out. The Mystic Field buys a little bit more time, but Albert is just massive on the Karina. Now, as you can see him look for compensation mid lane. He will be able to take that turret down. R7 with no damage. There is no kill pressure, but I might be wrong here. He jumps in. He looks for the solo kill. Nat's taken low. Still able to run away. 1 HP with the dash.
No! Good mechanics coming out of Nats. He takes the Cyclone, knowing that if he charges, he still moves forwards during the animation. Good micro mechanics, and RSG make sure that they tax RRQ Hoshi for every move they make.
Does R7 have the cursed helmet? Because I think he has the cursed helmet, right? He was burning him. I thought that one tick was going to get him. But okay, going back to that, right? I mean, that whole thing, we saw how much of a struggle it is to actually utilize that Lolita, because you charge up that Numenon blast, but if you miss it, where do you go?
Exactly.
That kind of falls apart at that point.
Let's not forget that Light also didn't have his flicker at that point in time. He had 20 seconds still left, and they couldn't really do much about it, so they had to just somehow keep them in place in the range of that Numenor blast, or at the very least just get slow. They don't find that big just yet, but Clay, he's getting a little brave here.
I want to just emphasize on what Nats was able to do there, because by getting that turret, that actually gives over the pressure to become Iman, just so aware. Yo, holy Iman, that was so good.
Iman sense.
Iman sense.
There it is.
The action time is ridiculous right now, but as we mentioned before, this composition from RRQ will get ahead very early on into the game, but RSGPH, they're going to play the same style here. Chris Helmet just being purchased by Demon Kite to help speed the process up as Nats continues his attack on R7. It's going to be a wet noodle fight for the large majority of this game, but we need to wait until RSGPH hits that 32k mark. That's when we're going to see them, if it still is even going to be the same.
This is crazy though, right? Because the gold lead already at this point is pretty massive for RQ, and that's again why they're going to be able to go ahead and start up this Lord early on. We'll see if they actually commit to it, because every member is now going to be this top side of the map.
9 minutes in, the Lord now chunked to half HP. RRQ looking for the play. R7 jumping in on the Demon Kai, falling back. He collapses here, and boom! There you have it. Skylar trying to run away with the tournament memory as the heavy spin will be 4 right damage. Albert jumping in onto 4, but he's going to get caught out of the Mystic Field. He will still be able to get out. The Dawning Light comes through, doesn't connect, but RRQ losing out in that fight.
The desperation coming out from RRQ, they were hungry to get one back against RSG, but with doesn't have a front line strong enough to take advantage from 4 members from RSGPH, as once again, they tax RRQ Hoshi.
So either way, right, that's still a great moment there for RSG Philippines, because they narrow the gold lead a little bit, but now they actually grab a couple turrets too, because now they're playing for space, right? They need to get those turrets down, open up the map for themselves, and this they could be looking for a player.
Oh, Nats is so aggressive. Demon Kite getting the death of this welcome. Just gonna be spitting him out to the team. And Mon right there. New blast to zone them away as Skylar will not be able to dish out the damage. Once even a flicker out of there. That's gonna be the re-engage from RRQ. Demon Kite and RRQ. They're back. Mon. Oh my goodness. Skylar as well getting out from that. That's now going in once again. Look at the re-engage. Just Light jumps in as well with the follow-up. Albert dishing on so much damage on the Nats, but that's gonna be the Mystic Field. Albert caught low. Will be shut down. Dawning Light connecting onto 2, and it is a 1-for-1.
Dear God, when does this end? When does that fight end?
First off, Vin survived that fight, and then the Nats with barely anybody health left. So either way, I mean, this is again the point when RSG Philippines, they're continuing to buy time. Look at the plays, the confidence coming in from Amon too. He almost has enough damage to pull those kind of ban tricks, maneuvers that we're used to seeing. And this could be trouble for RRQ.
I'm just surprised because wait, the play's coming out. Mon's in trouble.
Oh, and Mon's gonna get locked down there. He will fall. Skylar takes the kill. The bottom side though, look at what Nats was able to do.
Okay, I just talked about confidence, right? Well, maybe a little too much confidence, because now he got out of position, he got caught there and punished.
Looking at the item list so far, I mean, I can understand why. Mon does have 3 items. He's got more than enough armor penetration to really start taking down bigger targets. And since Clay was there, you might as well give it a try. But R7 playing it smoothly. Unfortunately for him, as we were talking about before, does he have the crosshair help? No, he does not. However, Clay is in prime position.
Now it becomes real dangerous though for RRQ Hoshi. Sure, they're still in the lead right now, 1.7 thousand gold lead, but again, we need to step back. Their composition works really well in the early to the mid stages of the game. If it goes to that ultra late game state again, 16 minutes in, that's where RSG find their power spike. It's baffling to me that they found so much success before hitting that Omega quote-unquote timer.
Yeah, and right now, if you saw in those items too, right, Clay really starting to just get those damage items this time around. It's not the same build he played in game number 1, and that could turn the tides for them as they get to this point. He has to be able to match that damage that is going to be pumped out from Aqua too, like we talked about with the Zane here, especially late game. Now, Lord going to be bobbed and weaved around here for now. Which team decides to go in?
Half HP on the Lord. This time around, it is going to be the Luminous one, enhanced one, as RSG look to find more control here. R7 looking for a heavy spin, going at it. They're going to go for it. That's going to be Albert with the Retribution. Clay going to get taken down, though. That's going to be the Numenat Blast popped and used from Light to catch Finn off. He is going to fall 2 for 0 right now. They're looking to collapse for more. Skylar will not be able to run away. He goes in for one more dash. Insane maneuvers from both of the teams. Albert gets out with 1 HP, but will fall to Aqua. R7 gets out. The Lord traded in for 3 kills. I don't think it's worth it.
I don't think it's worth it too, and I think Vin unfortunately did make a little bit of a mistake there. I think he could have sacrificed his life to save both Clay and as well as Albert there in that situation. Maybe not necessarily Clay, but compared to getting 3 members dying from the side of RRQ, compared to just 1, maybe even 2, I think the sacrifice play should have been played. It should have been taken.
Again, going back to the game plan of RSG Philippines, win those little bit of skirmishes, those team fights around the objectives. Gold lead pretty much gone at this point, right? So RQ lost that, and now look at the player gold. Eman is exactly where he wants to be. Skylar has quite a bit of items in even gold himself, but he has a much harder time to get that damage off because he needs to get those marks off before torn apart memory. But look at Finn.
That's exactly what we mentioned. The Dawning Light unfortunately was not able to take Vin down there with the Athena, but my goodness, the poke, the damage at this point is not even poke. It's just burst.
It's just burst, and they're dead even when it comes down to gold with a slight lead on RSGPH's side. Can we pull up the items? I'm curious to see. Vin seems to be taking a little too much damage from Iman, and I'm surprised Aqua wasn't able to just one-shot him at that stage. I'm guessing right now that Vin does have a decent amount of magic resist in comparison to how much armor he has.
Well, again, there's the damage dealt, right? I'm not sure if that's exactly what you wanted to see here, but that works at this point because, yeah, Aqua already getting to that point. As we saw, that 18 to 20 minute mark is really when Aqua's gonna hurt. And there you go. That's actually gonna be the updated one there. Look at that. At the top.
Interesting. He's already at the 42k mark, but the amount of damage doesn't seem to be adding up in terms of the percentile it's dishing out to RQ. So my guess is that they're respecting Aqua and they're making sure that they're building their MR very early on, their magic resist to keep them alive and healthy. But this does give a lot of room for Iman to work with. Let's just see how this plays out as they set up topside, waiting to ambush one of the members of RRQ. Could be. I don't think they're going to fall for it, but especially since the waves aren't in the right place.
Yeah, and on top of that too, right? The next Lord is going to be up in about 20 seconds. So all they have to do is set up around that part of the map, look for a play again. Notice Navs too, at the bottom, just doing work there, cutting waves. This could be a setup though. They don't know they're there.
Oh, no, the blast Finn still able to cancel it. Iman's gonna get back all the way. That I'm offended, and the read from RRQ as they look for more here. Light forced to back away, and the timing. Look at the timing as to when they check that bush.
That's so perfect.
Wow. Did they know they were there? Was that a check? That's the thing. Was that a 200 IQ play? That was a 5,000 IQ play.
How did they know? How did they know? I know they sent members here, but they could have easily, I know they have buff timers, but the next fight's already beginning.
Yeah, Vin with I'm Offended gonna be able to catch Demon Kite there, but now RSG, they look for something new. Blast gonna be cancelled again by Vin. Looking for re-engage right now as he will be immobilized by the Mystic Field. Albert's still on it. They need to look for the commitment onto the Lord right now. Also going to heavy spin, zoning Demon Kite away. This is a free Lord taken. Albert will be able to take it. That time to the back line. Skylar's still taking low here, going to be able to kite away as Clay is just popping, staying, committing onto that real world manipulation. RRQ once again are in the lead. That's so clean.
Yeah. very clean.
Wow.
And this is the benefit of having that Akai on the side lane, not being in the jungle, right? Because we just saw it there. He single-handedly zoned out the members of RSG Philippines, and especially Demon Kai, right? So that allowed them to just secure that Lord. They take the disciplined approach, reset, and now they can march into the base.
Okay, looking at the item list so far, you got an Anti-Cuirass, you also have a Dominance Ison, as well as an Athena Shield. So it does kind of show that they are prioritizing making sure that they do have some form of magic resist. It's not coming out as much as you would like to, but you do have the Holy Glaive as well coming out from Xavier. So in terms of how much, and especially since the sub-emblems do give them a little bit of benefit, you can tell that they're making sure that Aqua isn't going to be as effective as he was in the previous game.
Let's see, when they siege down the base here with the Brody, I think it's going to be really good. But RSG Philippines, they're doing a really good job at zoning away, using Iman and Aqua's damage, channeling it together, just burst down the Enhanced Lord. Now taken down, RRQ will look to find more creative ways to take the base turret down. R7 is still down below. Skylar's trying to just siege it down with the basic attacks. Yep, you will be able to take it down there in the bottom side. Top side also taken low, so they're poking it really down. Winions up top.
Winions indeed, as they get 2 turrets to the base of RSG Philippines. So they're happy with that, right? If they can find enough time, again, just to stall it out, wait for the next Lord, they can do the same thing. Right now, RSG Philippines has to be conscious again of that Akai, that heavy spin to zone them out. At the same time, right, where does RSG Philippines find a play here? Because you guys mentioned it, right? Gideon, you mentioned it, that magic resistance is actually working really well to counter the damage so far from Aqua, and it just, at this point, it's not working as well as it did in game number 1.
I'm curious to know, did R7 not complete his boots this entire time, or did he switch them out later on into the game?
I actually don't know. I'm pretty sure,
That's the thing,
yeah.
right? We
It's
did see
weird.
the buy. We'll have to theorize about that later, leave it to the analysts to do the hard.
Amanda's words.
That is a good point. That is
Doesn't need them.
That is true. That is true. But with RSG and the way that they're playing, right? I don't know how effective this single purchase is going to affect the bigger picture here.
Yeah, because again, all he has to do really at this point in the game is just zone out the members of RSG Philippines. That's literally his assignment. He's understood it up to this point, and now RSG Philippines is having to respond around that because at this point too, immortalities are up. So you pretty much have to handle that in itself. And there you go. Albert also picks up an Athena shield. So at this point, you're really negating a lot of that kind of burst magic potential.
We're seeing a lot of similarities though to game number 1, but this time around RRQ not as dominant in the early stage. Though again, I want to emphasize this: RSG Philippines, it's 19 minutes in now. That's where Aqua and Iman have their power spikes. This is where they start to just turn these fights. RRQ though, they notice that Iman is up top. They just fully commit onto the Lord. I feel like they just position themselves a little bit too risky here, and Light will be read out by R7. He goes into the bush knowing Light is there. It is just going to be the Lord taking a half HP. They just try to bring it out. They're trying to just bait it out here, as RSG are going to look for more map control, especially here in the bottom side river. Both teams not pulling the trigger just yet. RSG getting caught out here as Finn will be able to open up the map once again. Demon Kai going for the damage. Welcome time. Finn is going to get caught. He spits him out with the damage coming through, but R7 is going to be able to buy so much time. Finn getting out. R7 taken low there in the top side. Forced to flicker out. Clay is going to get caught. No! On to 3! RRQ! They can't go anywhere. The real world manipulation was popped there, but instantly cancelled by Clay. And now RRQ, they lose R7. Albert is still half HP, but they cannot look for anything here. Look at Albert. He just goes for the purple buff. It's RSG with a clean fight and a free Lord.
Oh, the one angle that RRQ didn't think of. They were doing the exact same thing. They're trying to delay, but the top side, the minions are pushing into the crystal, and Aqua here to stay and defend the base. The hero, the low-key hero that RSG needs, as the rest of the team trying to take this Lord as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's going to be Lord taking down R7, looking for the pin, but the Numenon blast once again by Light going to be cancelled out as R7 flickers there and cancels it away. RRQ Hoshi still getting out of this fight, but at what cost? They lose so much evolved Lord now, just as I say it.
This is crazy too, right? Because that whole time, Emon played it perfectly, right? The positioning for him to really just be disciplined enough. We are going to be taking a look at this instant replay presented by TikTok here. Look at the play. Look at the setup by both of them. Perfect setup there from Light. Look at Emon's positioning this whole time. He also has to be very careful. they canceled Clay's setup here because that could have been a big disaster for them. But they played around it so well, and just everything kind of fell into place for RSG Philippines there.
Two key points that they had to keep in mind. Number one, Skylar showed himself on bottom side, which made it very easy for RSG to say, you're a man down, we can start taking the space, right? Second of all, it's just disrupting Clay's ultimate, because as you can tell by his build, he's playing pure utility here. He's trying to shred, he is trying to demean RSG as much as possible when it comes down to RSG trying to run away from fights specifically.
Well, that's going to be the Evolved Lord marching down. Iman somehow finding that spot to hit Skylar in the midst of it all, and that's going to be the top side turret taken down. RSG Philippines just chaining this all across RRQ space. Mid lane turret inner taken down. They're looking for more on the board, but no. They just pull back RRQ with a good defense, RSG with very good discipline, able to just control this. Still holding on to that 3,000 gold lead, which is just going to get bigger and bigger as we progress through the game. RSG have hit their power spikes, and now it's going to be RRQ who need to find that comeback moment.
I feel like they're feeling pretty confident here, especially you saw Emon, he has that immortality, right? So he doesn't, I mean, he's also got the flicker available to him, so he can be a little more defensive or aggressive with that, deciding how he wants to play it out. You can see R7, again, this is up to him to find that moment for the setup. Finn is there to help with the disengage if he needs to, or he also has a flicker, I'm offended combo to initiate, but he's got to be super careful here, because even if you catch someone out, immortality is going to be popped. You still have to work around them, and look at Emin and Aqua, right? They're just pretty much in the back lane, letting Nats, Light, and Demon Kite just take the brunt of that damage.
I totally agree, but I think the biggest problem here for RQ is going to be Nats, right? Because again, Skylar is continuously getting threatened here. Nobody's really able to peel Nats off of him, and when they do, that means Clay is wide open. So who does RRQ Hoshi play for right now? Do they play for Skylar, or are they playing for Clay? And when you look at both of them, they have to work together. If they get split in half, that's when RSG start picking them off one by one, pressing their advantage and creep up, down, and push them right back into the crystal.
Speaking of Skylar or Clay, we have to talk about the damage output here now that we are entering that late game, because we kind of mentioned this in the draft. When you pick something like a Brody, it's going to be tough, it's going to be rough when we get into that later stage of the game. If we take a look at Skylar's items as well, there's no way he's holding full offensive items. It has to be some defensive, maybe a brute force breastplate and an immortality here, and there you go. As I say it, exactly right, except it's the Athena, not the immortality.
Yeah, I mean, double defensive items, he's still able to kind of survive a little bit longer than he should, but he's also taking Killing Spree instead of Weapon Master, so he's not going to hit as hard as he would like to at this stage of the game.
That's again though, look at his positioning. He's looking to just find Clay, find Skylar on the flanks, and he does exactly that. He pops the sprint. No, he doesn't pop the sprint just yet. He's going in, he knows where Clay is. Clay's gonna get zoned out. R7's looking for an opening here onto the Lord, looking for that heavy spin once again. By taking it to half HP. Immobility there as that's going to Dawning Light once again. That's finding Clay, but he will not be able to run this time. It's actually gonna be Finn looking for the cover. Gets the I'm offended on Demon Kite, taking the Lord low. It's gonna be RRQ to look for the Lord. Heavy spin gonna be popped. Demon Kite so on point of retribution. That's taken low there in the bottom side of that. Skylar shutting down. Clay will fall to the Dawning Light of Aqua, and that's another one. R7 as well. They find the Mystic Field onto Finn. Finn can no longer run. The winner truncheon by Albert was misclicked, and Finn will have his immortality pop. Not just yet though. He must looking forward. Gets Skylar the Dawning Light to take him down. Albert jumping on the three members, still able to back off. Finn gets hit, but they will both survive. Evolved Lord, this is looking like a closeout for RSG.
Oh, they're looking to end this game. The inhibitor is going to fall down first. And RSGPH so close to getting this game too. They find one and they're looking to pick for more.
Albert doing the damage onto Light. Iman jumping in with the rescue, just dealing it out without minions. RSG close it off 2-0.
Again, they buy time to get to exactly where they need to. Find those mistakes coming out from RRQ, and they punish them, taking game 2 in similar fashion.
Yeah, they hit hard, they hit fast, and even though RRQ had a really good idea utilizing the death timer from the immortality itself to ensure deaths of Nats, well done, but RSG, after that, the instinct to say press forward, have confidence, we got this game in the bag.
I feel like they were out-drafted in game number 2. Again, I wrote down GG, I slid it over to you, Gideon, as I saw the drafts. RSG, complete. A lot of win conditions there, and again, this time I feel like it was easier for them to stall out, to stall and wait for that timer. Be electric savior, so huge once again.
Dude, Naps didn't work there.
Naps.
And that last team fight, he just went to the
Sheesh.
back lane and just made a huge play.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous here, but let's go into a deeper dive with the analysis, the two L's that make this W work all together to give us the inside scoop on the inner workings of the scene composition. Take it away, analysts.
Thank you so much. At your service, my name is Leo. This here is LaFell, and we're breaking down game number 2. The Kingslayers come in strong 2-0. LaFell, let's talk about the draft.
Yeah, speaking of the draft, right, here's the thing. I keep saying this, but Beatrix is very fair. Beatrix is a very fair hero. Talking about the draft, we have a few questions coming in. Number one, Skylar on the Brody. Brody so far in MSC hasn't been doing well. Light on the Lolita. First we're like, why did they pick up the Lolita? However, we definitely saw how at the later stage of the game, a lot of good Luminous blasts, and overall, the Lolita looks so clean.
Yep, it's been a while since I've last seen a last pick so strong, much like game number 1, where they picked up the Kufra and the Saver, which was more of a 2-in-1. In game number 2, it's that Lolita that made all the difference. At first I was just thinking, hey, it's that confirmed stun, but actually, even the Numenon Blast, despite the few times that it was cancelled by Ruby, and of course R7 Zakai, it did more than just that. The threat of activation alone was more than enough.
3 to 4 people keeps getting stunned. That's crazy. Right now, looking at the damaging items, I want to look back at Brody, Skylar over here, because so far in MSC hasn't been doing well. And let's talk about Brody's kit a little bit. Even though Skylar over here, he has the Blade of Despair as well as Demon Hunter Sword, which does make it so that every time he hits, it hurts for the singular hit, but he can hit a lot. Looking at the itemization for the side of RSG Philippines, there is a lot of anti-QRS. And the thing is, if they want to beef it up a little bit more, they could add the blade armor as well, just because Brody actually does hit a lot, so the reflect damage will hurt. But either way, I feel like in this game, having the Brody will not dish out enough damage against the line of RG Philippines.
Yep, I guess the story here just involves the bigger picture. Going to the degree, yes, Skylar had to put a lot of